Namaskar, friends. In today's edition of Right Angle, I'd like to share my views on American President Donald Trump's first formal address to the two houses of the U.S. Congress, that is U.S. Senate and the House of Representatives. Though it is not said in American parlance, the so-called State of the Union address, but it is a very significant thing in the sense that after he got elected as the president for the second time, this is the first time formally he is addressing the US legislatures. I think important thing in this address from India's point of view, and that is why I am here before you, is Trump's various announcements on imposition by America of tariffs on the products from other countries. Here, of course, he specifically has chosen three countries: China, Mexico, and Canada. And I think he has imposed 25% of tariffs on each one of them. I'm not sure whether China 25, earlier it was 10%, another 10%, so it has become perhaps 20%, and immediately that those countries also have retaliated by imposing counter tariffs on American products there in those countries. So that's a different matter, but we're talking of American or Mr. Trump's actions. And in that address, he did mention of India, though India has not specifically imposed any tariffs as such. But he said that from 1st of April, there will be the reciprocal tariffs as far as India and US is concerned, in the sense that if India is imposing, say, X amount of tariffs on the American products in India, America also will be doing the likewise. Here, the point that Trump says that India is one of those countries where tariffs are in a maximum on certain automobile products. It is as much as 100%, whereas in Indian products in the American market are much lower, say 10%, 15%. So such a huge disparity. And I'd like to say this thing, what Mr. Trump is saying, that America is one of those countries, some select countries, as far as their trade interactions are concerned, America is in a losing side, in the sense that America imports more and exports less. That is why that is called balance of trade deficit. That means what is happening, that while US is facilitating the products of other countries, the other countries are not equally facilitating in their own markets the American products, and that huge deficit overall is harming the American economy. For your instance, I think as far as Canada is concerned, the trade deficit, according to the figures available to me by my colleagues, is this. Trade deficit is $63.3 billion last year, that 2024. And this is, and as far as $63.3 billion US dollars with Canada. And in China, it is an astounding figure of $295.4 billion. That means about 300 billion dollars trade deficit. That means so much Chinese products are there in American market, but American products in Chinese market is so less. So that is why this huge deficit. As far as Mexico is concerned, last year US had a trade deficit of $171.8 billion. And with regard to India, the trade deficit last year was $45.7 billion, which is actually a 5.4% increase of what was the figure in the year 2023. So as you can see, though compared to these four countries, compared to say compared to Canada, Mexico and China, India's trade deficit, figuratively speaking, is not that much, but the fact remains still $45.7 billion of deficit is there. That means in American markets you see more Indian products than what the American products in Indian markets are. And Mr. Trump's point is that in certain items, automobiles, for example, it is more than 100%, and this is very exploitative. Now, what exactly are the implications here? Let me concede and rather let me admit right at the very beginning that I am not a great student of economics. I have my limitations, but what are the points that I am going to share with you is precisely the points that should arise dispassionately seen in any person with reasonable common sense, and I assume that I do have that reasonable common sense, though I am not a student of economics. I think before coming specifically to this aspect, let's face this. Mr. Trump has been elected by the Americans, and what exactly were the promises that he had made? He had made these points. Of course, you know that the illegal immigration to America was a huge issue. That border with particularly coming from Canada side less, but then more from that Mexican side or Latin American side. Illegal immigration was the number one thing. Number two was this unemployment, and according to Trump, why this unemployment is there? Because of the dumping of such cheap products from other countries. What's happening is that the American industry is suffering in the sense that they are not American products are not competitive against the products say from China, against the items from Mexico, particularly agricultural products, and and the same the food stuff from Canada, and the products from India. So what is happening is this, that the biggest consumer market of the world perhaps is America, and one should also bear this fact in mind that compared to their economic capability or economic status, America is a rich country, but in my opinion, this is what my experience has been, America perhaps will be among the cheapest countries of the world. Whether any item, if you compare the things in American market with the cost of the same thing, say in a European market or the Japanese market, you will find, you'll be astounded to see that things are so cheap in America. Even in every sense of the term, be it gas, be it houses, you can't even compare the cost of the house in America and Canada, there is 100% difference. I think one of the main reasons why this government in Canada is going to lose in the next election is because of the high price of the housing. There is not enough houses; people can't afford it. So I mean, God has been very kind to the Americans in that sense. They are the richest, but actually they get the things very, very cheap. They're used to it because of their free economy. Commodities from other countries do go there. As a result, what happens is this: the Americans themselves, because their products are not competitive. And even these American big multinational corporations, they find it easy that way to do because of the normal tax and tariffs. What they do is that those co-production, their investments abroad, the American companies coming and producing things, say in China, Vietnam, or for that matter, say in India, something which that we have been promoting. That's a different thing. Everything is interrelated, and sometimes they are also clashing. If one goes little deeper into those things. So what happens is this: when the products are not competitive, what is happening? There are not enough producers there in America because things are being imported. And if you do not produce much, if you do not have enough factories, then obviously that leads to unemployment. Your people do not have jobs because the big established companies, they find it much cheaper to produce their things abroad and then importing them. They find it much cheaper to do the things or produce things there in China or Taiwan or somewhere else, and the finished products then go from those countries to China, to America. The same thing, if suppose this is a cell phone, if this cell phone will be produced there in America, it will cost much more. Rather, the same companies, whether it is Apple or some other company producing the same things in China, and then these things, the Chinese made things, but actually they are the joint products of the American companies, but they dominate the American market because they are cheaper. So what happens is this: when I'm coming back to that electioneering and the electoral promises that Trump had made, that he has to go for more and more employment in the generations, and for that employment generations, the American producers need to be encouraged. The American producer need to be helped. So, or for that matter, the American producer need to be protected a bit. Since he has been elected by the Americans, is the President of the United States, it is very reasonable on his part, because that is why the people had voted him to power, and he is precisely doing it. And I think if you very dispassionately look at it, even our Prime Minister Narendra Modi also will be doing the same thing. We will be trying to protect our industries here. Why we are imposing so much of tariffs on American products or the other products? It is precisely because if you listen the thing, you must have seen what happened. I think some products after this Trump came, and when Modi and Trump met, and Trump said that we will be imposing that reciprocal in the measures. Certain items, I think India decided to reduce the prices or the tariffs, the taxes that import duties. And you must have seen how a group of Indian businessmen wrote a letter to saying this is something wrong, our protection cover is going away. So imagine, the same thing is happening in America. And this guy got votes by promising them that he would be taking care of their own interests. He has to produce more, jobs for Americans. So one has to see from that angle. One has to understand what Trump is doing. And after all, when I'm saying the this particular aspect of Trump, you'll have to see the things holistically from Trump's global view. What happens is this. I once had pointed out here that what's happening these days. As I said, there's a great ideological battle that is taking place all over the world, and particularly in the democratic world, whether it is India, whether it is Western Europe, whether it is North America. North America means, I mean to say that America, Canada, and Mexico. The rest of the South Africa, I'm not taking them into account. So, what is the problem here? You have the so-called nationalists and conservatives on the one side, and the so-called liberal leftists on the other side. The Islamists, of course, have joined hands with them, as I had explained to you later, and this is happening. So this great fight is taking place, and the elections, what has happened, the domination of these left liberal elites and their viewpoints are such that it is ultimately making people more conscious of the nation state. Actually, when one talks of this liberal international order, if I may say so, why I may say so, I think this is what, geopolitically speaking or politically speaking, this is an established fact that soon after the end of the Cold War and when Soviet Union disintegrated, everybody thought that it was the ultimate victory of the cause of liberal democracy. So everything will be done now as per as our dictates, as per the way we think. There should not be the other viewpoint. And of course, that's a complicated thing. I think this has resulted in that Ukraine war. That's a different thing. I'm not going into that area. But in this broad ideological thing, the left and the so-called liberal elites who have dominated, they still dominate. I think even in India, though Modi has been in power over the last 11 years, but whether it is bureaucracy, whether it's intelligentsia, whether the normal, the other, group of, political parties, even to say they still are, overwhelmingly dominant. The same is the case there in America and the Europe. So in their sort of, thing, what has happened is this, one should have, more open, border, facilitating migration. There should be more, there should be international, regimes in the sense that every country has to concede little bit of their, so-called nationalism or sovereignty. Like, for instance, soon after the end of the Cold War, since we are talking of, trade, that WTO came into being, World Trade Organization, I think sometime in the late 1990s, and America became a part of it. And just because of that, when these international organizations try to play and even decide to a great extent your domestic agenda, then there are problems. So that is why the so-called nationalists and conservatives are doing right of the center. People are doing electorally well in many parts of this democratic world. Whether it is Modi here, it is in Italy, Germany, or even Trump himself. So that overall viewpoint of scheme of things, what is the most important thing? The most important thing is balance of power. Your national interests are primary. Primacy must be given. In very simple language, I am saying that for them the most important is your own national interest. So when you interact with another country, your relationship is not dictated by ideological considerations. It is dictated by national interest. It becomes more transactional. That is the exact term. It becomes more transactional. It is less and less ideological. and you have to protect your national interest. So during the Cold War, these concepts were there when we are talking of foreign policy, geostrategic thing, that balance of power thing is there. And I think that concept got diluted, and that's why this European war has happened, I think, which Trump is realizing. That is why he wants this peace and some sort of via media between Russia and the West. Similarly, as I said, that the whole point is that they realize, that America realizes and Trump realizes, that if that does not get transactional, if the American national interests are getting hampered, because as I said, when the international organizations become more prominent, then your sovereign right do get diluted. Even then you are asked to have more and more international commitments, like the war with Ukraine, or for that matter, the NATO alliance. It is always the America which really pays more in the sense that to keep the alliances alive and running. 50 to 60% of the money comes from the America alone, and Trump says that nothing doing, it has to share. I am talking of America's national interest, make America great again. That MAGA concept, make America great again. That America is becoming weaker and weaker with each passing year. The American people are suffering. The American the unemployment is there. Our economy is coming down. So he had promised all these things to his electorate, and that is precisely what he is doing. So to find fault, which of course the left liberal elites will be doing and writing much, is one thing, that is all right. But then I think dispassionately, if you look at it, then you have to understand why Trump is doing all these things. Last aspect, I will say that if this is the reality, then what nation should do, what a country like India should do. So nothing like, as our Prime Minister says, self-reliance. And we have to be good. Our products have to be really competitive, in the sense that our products will not be sold in outside markets just because of some goodwill on the part of the countries that are going to import from us, that we will be imposing 70-80% of tariffs on them, but they will be importing 5 or 10% tariffs on our products. No. So the point is very simple. It is in a realistic world, you have to improve your quality. You have to compete. Competition sometimes brings things very good, in the sense that it may. I think our Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal, I think, made some statement last week or so. I had read it in the newspapers, that the Indian companies have to pay much attention to the quality, so that our products will be sold. That is one. Second, what happens is this. As you know that Trump, when one talks of the relationship, as I said, that Trump is a person who believes in the transactional approaches, in the sense that overall the bilateral overall gamut of things have to be taken into account, and there will be negotiations. How these negotiations will take place, that reciprocity thing can be talked about. It may not be that rigid if America and India conclude a trade agreement between them. Don't go through that, the WTO, that is creating the problem. So if you have a trade agreement directly with America, which Trump and Modi agreed, and they have decided that it should be concluded by the September or October of this year, then this tension or this trade problem to a considerable extent will get lessened, in the sense that you can talk that exact reciprocity is not possible. For instance, as an Indian, I will argue that look, can you see in monetary terms the number of Indian investors in America? You'll be surprised to know that Indian companies have invested there in America too. I think it nearly 400 or 500 million dollars or more than that. I'm not exactly sure of the things, but not many people do know that we do also invest there. Our Tata have invested, the other companies have invested. It's not that. Similarly, the most important thing is that the America takes the best brains from ours. Our people go, our engineers, our doctors, our technocrats, the best brains. They go to America, they go to American universities, they who are there, they become things. You have to take the contribution of the Indians towards American in the economy. And third thing is that overall you will have to see, as I said, that holistically the gamut of your bilateral relationship will be taken into account. We are coming very close in areas like technology, in areas like defense, in areas like energy. For instance, we are going to buy more and more petrol and gas products from there, which America under Trump is going to export more and more, in the sense that Biden, that also was one of his electoral promises. Biden administration, because of this so-called climatic concerns and this promoting that green energy concept, had stopped and had curtailed the extraction of the petroleum resources from the ground and under the sea in America. And you will be perhaps aware of the fact that US has got the largest deposits of gas and these petroleum products. It's not the Arab world. In fact, not even 5% or 10% of such resources have been utilized or have come over the surface, and Trump wants to do it in a very big way. And we are a energy deficient country, so there is great scope of buying more American energy things to take care or to balance to a great extent this increasing deficits. So that's why it is not that all the doors are closed, though Trump says that he is going to, at least Trump is nice towards India, in the sense that unlike these other countries, unlike other countries, here in India he is not imposing that 25-30%. He is saying reciprocal taxes, which in a way is much better. And then when you conclude a trade agreement between with US, India-US trade pact does materialize as it is expected to be by the middle of or by the autumn of this year, then many of these things can be taken care of. And when you have a bilateral trade agreement, then that reciprocity thing will not play an important role. There is ample scope for negotiation. And the worst case scenario, that is my last point. Bhai, be a Gandhivadi. I had written it once, long time ago, in the context of China, when the Chinese things were coming and this thing. I think Gandhivadi in the sense, that when Gandhi was leading our freedom of struggle, once he had talked of boycott of British goods. When you talk of boycott of British goods, it doesn't mean that the government there will be imposing taxes. So what that means, that you do not buy them. Nobody, you see, even if the American products will come to Indian markets, if you do not buy their products, You say that okay भाई, हमारा जो प्रोडक्ट अगर हम 20% कर देंगे, 25% आपके पर तारीख पर, तो हम अमेरिकन प्रोडक्ट्स को 25% कर देंगे, एंड देन ये आके हमारा करो, आप अगर खरीदोगे नहीं. आई रियली, that also is something I'm not, and that's why I said that I'm not a great student of economy. I really do not know what are the products, the American products that can come to the Indian market, and that Trump is so much worried about. I am quite sure, unlike the Chinese, they will not be selling them very toys, they will not be selling your household things, they will not be selling even your Ganesh or Saraswati Murti, even like the Chinese are dumping in our markets. So what sort of commodities that Americans will be exporting to India? I really don't know. If that is the case, if you do not buy them and just impose this thing, then automatically Americans will not selling more things to you, and then Trump cannot do anything. But Trump will say that okay, bhai, if India is imposing this much percentage of tariffs, and we have to do the same thing, but then Trump cannot say that, force you that you buy the American products. So this is an extreme thing, as I said. For the sake of argument, I am talking of. I am not saying that I am not advocating this, that maybe this thing, the need for this thing will not arise, but I think all is not lost. One has to understand why Trump has done what he has done, and then secondly, if and when you sign a trade agreement with America, and which is going to be sooner rather than later, even these reciprocal measures, that concept can be negotiated, and a via media can come out, because in that case, your total entire gamut of bilateral relationship will be taken into account. And all told, Trump does not consider India an enemy. And he is doing, as I said, to his allies. Can you believe, can any country be a closer ally than America, than Canada, with which there is an open border? Like in our case, India, Nepal, we do not have a closed border. The same is the case between America and Canada. Even in Mexico is their immediate neighbor. And when I am talking of Canada, they also belong to the same, what is called the Anglosphere. Their origin is the same. The English speaking people. The Anglosphere in the sense that Australia, New Zealand, Britain, and in America. So Trump is not doing this thing because it considers India as an enemy. Sorry, no. I mean, he is equally talking of the same sort of thing against the European Union also. I think his next course of action, the way he is fighting the Europeans on the question of this urgency of halting the war in Ukraine, and sharing of the burdens of NATO, all these things. So it is not that. One has to understand why Trump has done what he has done. I hope I made some sense, and thank you for listening to me with such patience. Namaskar.